Most game consoles are designed in America or Japan, but there's a game console almost nobody has heard of, and it was made in Taiwan. This is the Super A'can, and today I'm going to tell you everything I know about it. The Super A'can came out in October of 1995, and it was discontinued only 6 months later, after losing $6 million for its parent company, Funtech. As a result, very few were sold, and they're one of the rarest game consoles in the world. I could only find one on eBay, and it was listed for almost $5,000 US. On a website that sells the most random crap ever, finding only one console is absolutely insane. The reason it was discontinued so quickly is because it was terrible. It came out in 1995, meaning it had to compete with the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation, both of which had a 1-year head start. But that didn't even matter, because the A'can was garbage compared to both of them. The A'can was only capable of 2D rendering, while the industry was transitioning to 3D graphics. The A'can was more comparable to a Super Nintendo in terms of graphics. Now let's talk tech. The Super A'can uses a Motorola 68000 to do all the heavy lifting. That same chip is used in the Sega Genesis, the Neo Geo, and the Macintosh 128K. Interestingly, the chip is clocked faster on the A'can than any of them, at 10.7 MHz. As for RAM, the Super A'can had 64 KB of main RAM, 32 KB of secondary RAM, and 128 KB of video RAM. In total, that's more than 10 times less RAM than the PlayStation. The controller on the A'can is almost identical to the Super Nintendo controller, with a D-pad, 4 face buttons, select and start, and 2 shoulder buttons, and there are 2 controller ports. The Super A'can had 2 expansions planned for it, a CD drive for reading larger full-motion video games, and an expansion unit, which would add 3D visuals, increased RAM, and possibly speech synthesis. These are both similar to Sega Genesis upgrades. The Genesis got a CD reader and something called the 32X, which gave it extra chips and turned the 16-bit console into a 32-bit machine. If either of these ever made it to market, the A'can would have been much more interesting, but sadly, no prototypes were ever found. There's only one mock-up image of the 3D device on the back of the A'can's box. We can figure out where they were supposed to go. The 3D expansion was probably plugging into the cartridge slot like the Sega Genesis 32X did, and the CD attachment would probably plug into this expansion port on the side of the console. Now, for everyone's favorite part of the video, the games. But first, if you're enjoying the video, subscribe. I'm working on more retro console videos like this. I just did one for the Virtual Boy. Anyway, the Super A'can only has 12 known games released for it, and several more that were cancelled. Most of these games are bad versions of popular genres, but there's a few good-ish games. I was hoping to emulate the games to show you, but after spending hours trying 3 different emulators and several different ROM sets, I decided that emulating a 30-year-old unheard of console is a massive pain in the butt, so how about I just tell you about the games? These games all have Taiwanese names, but I'm going to give you the English translations, because I can't read Taiwanese. There's a Puyo Puyo style puzzle game called Formosa Duel. We've got Magical Pool, which is a classic billiards game. Rebel, which is a strategy game. This one's technically unreleased, but it was completed and manufactured before the A'can got canned, so I'll count it. We've got Sango Fighter. This game originally came out for MS-DOS. There's quite a few clone games like Boom Zoo, which is basically Bomberman with animals. African Adventures is just digital Monopoly, and Speedy Dragon is Sonic, but so much worse. Instead of a Speedy Blue Hedgehog, it's a weird kid with a baseball bat. Are you seeing a theme here? They took the ideas from great games and they made them terrible. Anyway, Super Taiwanese Baseball League is basically just the game World Pro Baseball for the Mega Drive. There's a game called Gambling Lord, but it's literally just Mahjong. Super Dragon Force is a port of a Taiwanese DOS game, similar to the game Shining Force. Then of course we finally have a platformer. It's called CUG, and is loosely based on an old Chinese legend. And lastly, we have the game that was meant to be the Super A'can's flagship. Since it's the flagship, I'll try to pronounce the Taiwanese name. Xia Zhizi, which translates to the Son of Evil. This game is a full-on RPG, and it plays similarly to early Final Fantasy titles. The game has branching paths based on dialogue, and a full-on good or evil system for the main character, similar to Knights of the Old Republic. So anyway, that's the 12 officially released A'can games, and there are 11 more games that are known to be cancelled. These games included a few more genres, including action, trivia, and shoot 'em up. Now, I wanted to try and figure out how many Super A'cans were made, and how many are still out in the wild. I first heard about the A'can from my favorite console history book, The Game Console. Seriously, this book is the reason I know so much about gaming history. Anyway, it estimates the A'can sold 10 to 20,000 units. I think that's a bit generous, seeing as there's only one on eBay. I'm guessing it's somewhere around 10,000, but there's probably less than 500 working units in the wild. Like many old game consoles, the A'can suffers from capacitor failure. There's probably many A'cans that are still in Taiwan, but many have probably died because of faulty capacitors. I tried to see how many are known to exist online. There's the one on eBay, then I found one that went at an auction for almost $3,000. I found a few forum posts from people who claim to own one. Apparently they still make the rounds in the Taiwanese resale market, but I can't find any of those online. There's also thought to be one dev kit in existence. It was mentioned by a collector who auctioned one of the A'cans. I cannot believe a dev kit survived, seeing how rare dev kits are, even for consoles like the Xbox, which sold millions of units. Well, look at you! Now you know almost everything there is to know about one of the rarest game consoles ever. There's very little information about this console online, so this video is the culmination of a ton of research. If you enjoyed it, like the video and subscribe, because I'm working on more rare console documentaries like this. I also made a video about Nintendo's Virtual Boy, you can check that out in the top right corner. You've been watching Wolf Byte, I'll see you next time.